So, to begin with, you should cut down on all the junk food. To begin with, you should cut down on all the junk food. So, if it's at the beginning of the sentence, to begin with, you should cut down. Cut down on means, what is, fast guys, a little faster please.
Reduce.
Sorry?
Reduce.
Reduce. When you cut down on something, you reduce it. Reduce. Okay? So cut down on something. You should cut down on smoking. Oh, maybe I should cut down. If I say cut down without on, it has the same meaning. Oh, you gotta cut down. You should cut down, man. You're smoking a lot. What, a pack a day? Or 26 a day? You should cut down. You should cut down on all that junk food. You should cut down on all that junk food. Of course, all that junk food, like all that, is not formal. If I say you should cut down on all that junk food, it's not very formal. Cut down itself is not very formal. So when you cut down on something, it's used in speaking, but writing you would use the word reduce. Reduce is the verb. The noun would be reduction. Shen. Sh. Not shen. Yeah, you have to work on it. Yeah. Reduction. Reduce, reduction. Cut down on something. So, if you want to lose some weight, to begin with, you should cut down on all that junk food. I shouldn't have called him to begin with. You know the structure should not have done something. When we talk about modals, we will talk about this, but just very quickly, should not have done something, something I did, I should not have done it. I shouldn't have called him to begin with. You know what, when I called him, he was so angry, he said all the things that I didn't want to hear. You know what? I shouldn't have called him in the first place. Or you tell me, you know what, you shouldn't have called him in the first place, to begin with. Like in the first place. In the first place, to begin with. In the first place. I shouldn't have called him in the first place. To begin with. So, this word is? Julia? Simultaneously. Simultaneously, right? Simultaneously. The only thing you really have to work on is your pronunciation. A little bit. And unfortunately in this class, we don't have a huge chance of doing that. But it's simultaneously, right? Because we'll talk later. Simultaneously. Simultaneously is what? What part of speech is it?
Adverb.
It's an adverb. When I say what part of speech, remember, part of speech, noun, verb, adverb, adjective, preposition, pronoun, what? So what part of speech is simultaneously? It's an adverb. So Julia?
Simultaneously, he's eating and running.
He's eating and running simultaneously. Very good.
Yeah.
So simultaneously means at the same time. He was running, but can I say at the same time speaking?
No.
So what should I say? He was running at the same time. He was?
Running.
He was running, and at the same time he was speaking on his phone. I can't say, but I can say he was running while, I can use the word while, speaking on his phone, correct? I can do that. He was running while speaking on his phone. At the same time, he was speaking on his phone. That I can do. Correct, right? He was running while speaking on his phone. He was speaking while chewing gum. I would say don't speak with your mouth full. This is what moms usually tell their kids. Don't speak with your mouth full. Don't eat while speaking, or don't speak while eating. Yes, while doing something. It's always while. Use a different color. While doing. So don't speak while doing. Remember that while was usually with ing, right? And you remember that two things happening at the same time was like while he was driving, she was sleeping. While he was watching TV, she was doing the dishes. While she was watching TV, he was doing the dishes. So simultaneously at the same time. Now, simultaneously is adverb, right? It's an adverb. What's the adjective? Simultaneous. Okay, how would you use simultaneous as an adjective, Kenta? Melinda? Do we? The two events were simultaneous. Simultaneous. Yes? Simultaneous. The two events were simultaneous. Adjective. Two simultaneous things. Two simultaneous events means two events happening at the same time, on the same day, the same time. Yes? The two concerts are simultaneous. So two simultaneous. Now we have simultaneous translation, for example. What is simultaneous translation? Another word for it is interpretation. So interpretation is simultaneous translation. An interpreter is actually a simultaneous translator. An interpreter is a simultaneous translator. Why do we call it simultaneous translation?
We can do two languages at the same time.
Same time. As the person speaks, I need to translation is always two languages, right? But the same time is important. So as that person speaks, I have to translate. I don't have time to go home and sit down and look at the sentences, right? When you give me a text and I translate, that's translation. But when someone talks, you speak Japanese and I translate it into English, for our friends, that's simultaneous translation. So we call the people who do simultaneous translation interpreters. Simultaneous translators are interpreters. Somebody will ask you, what do you want to do in the future? I want to become an interpreter. A simultaneous translator. So the two events happen simultaneously. The two events occur or happen simultaneously. Since, of course, since I, give me a sentence.
The world didn't see a recession like this since the 29th crash.
Since the 29th,
Crash.
how do you spell that?
C-R-A-S-H.
C-R
A
C-R-E S
No, CRI.
No, A-S-H. Crash.
Crash.
Crash. Because I didn't get it the first time we said it. So crash. Since the crash, what happened?
The world didn't see a recession like this.
Okay, so since is point of time. We talked about it for tenses, for and since. Well, since I saw you. Since this morning. She's been eating since this morning. She's been on the phone since this morning. That's one meaning of since, which is about time, and here of course. And we talked about since and the difference between since and from. We talked about it. If you say since 1998, we're talking about until now, right? Since always means until now, until the present time. Whereas from sometime in the past to sometime in the past. So since and from are different, right? So you say, when you say from 1996 to 1998. So from 1996 to 1998. Thank you. Thank you very much. From 1996 to 1998. From 1996 to 1999. From June 1996 to July 1996. Yes? But since, always until now. Now, since has another meaning too. Since also means we have to go on for 5 minutes because of Darby's knocking. So since, like since I saw him, since I saw you, so on and so forth. But since also has another meaning. What is that since? Totally different meaning than point of time.
Because.
Means because. So since also means because. Can you use that in a sentence, Julia?
Since he was a child, he plays the piano.
Is that because?
No.
And since he was a child, he plays the piano? Or he has been playing the piano? So there you should say, since he was a child, he has been playing the piano. Because he has been playing the piano since he was a child. It has been going on since that time. He's been playing for 30 years.
Okay, because in German we say.
Now, in English, since then until now, it's been happening. But that was a good sentence. He's been playing the piano since he was a child. She has lived in that house since she moved to Canada. Or I have been teaching since 2 decades ago. Or for 20 years. Or, so for instance. But this since, who can use it as like the reason because, Tian?
Because her car is out. Since her car is out of order, she has to travel by TCC.
Yes, beautiful. Since, but the car is not, we usually don't say the car is out of order. Since her car is broken down, since her car is broken, she has to travel by TTC. We don't usually say my car is out of order. Well, for TTC buses, we say out of service, right? But your car breaks down. Since his car broke down last week, he has been traveling, that's the point of time. But since his car is broken, he has to travel by TTC. This since means because. Hey, come check him out, he's dying. Since you're a doctor, you must be able to cure him. Since you're a doctor, because you're a doctor, since you were late, you have to do,
You have to stay outside.
you have to stay 1 more hour or 2 more hours, and we'll be doing, so since you were late, because you were late. Okay, that's since. When? Of course. When? When I saw him, when I first met him, he was just a child. Yeah? When is easy. We don't want to spend. But when, remember when and while in those sentences, that's a little tricky. So when I say while, is used for an action that goes on. It's a period of time. When is point of time? I was watching TV while the phone rang or when the phone rang?
When.
So remember, I was watching TV when the phone rang. Fine. When the phone rang. But I was watching TV when the phone rang. This is point of time, right? Point of time. So if I want to say I was watching TV while
The phone was ringing.
while
The phone was ringing.
while the phone was ringing, we're talking about it went on. But another example, I was watching TV while Sally was doing the dishes. I was watching TV while she was eating her dinner. I was watching TV while it was raining outside. Two actions going on at the same time. Or I was watching TV while drinking coffee. I was watching TV while talking to my friend. So doing two actions at the same time, period of time, while, when, point of time. Now, how about meanwhile? Meanwhile and meantime. A little more challenging, right? And we have in the meantime. Let's put them together in one word. Meantime, and we have in the meantime, in the meanwhile, no. But meanwhile, so a sentence. Anyone?
I always fall asleep in the.
Wait, right after her, here, go ahead.
I went to university, meanwhile some of my friends got well-paid jobs.
Some of my friends,
Some of my friends got well-paid jobs.
meanwhile, no. We use the word as maybe close, but here we say while I was going to the university, some of my friends were offered well-paid jobs. As I was studying so but meanwhile, no. Tian?
I always fall asleep in the class. Meanwhile, I'm really fresh at night.
No. It's not that easy to use meanwhile, so yes, go ahead.
Toronto leads economic sector in Canada. Meanwhile, Hanoi is
No.
politic and cultural center.
No.
No.
Any other sense of meanwhile or meantime?
We will meet up in a minute. Meanwhile, you can check the location.
Perfect. Say it again.
We will meet up in a minute. Meanwhile, you can check the location.
Yes. Meanwhile is not like for comparison. Means during this time. So we will look for the place. Meanwhile means at the same time. As we are looking, while we are looking, you can check the location. So we will be looking for the place. Well, meanwhile, you can Google the location. Means as we are looking, meanwhile, at the same time, during that time. So she was, the teacher was teaching. Meanwhile, Julia was checking her messages. So let's go to Canada and study. In the meantime, you can meet a lot of people. At the same time, as you're studying there, in the meantime, in between your studies and all that, during that time, you can meet a lot of people. I'll read the sentence for in the meantime here. I'll make some inquiry. So, meanwhile, in the meantime, I'll make some inquiries of my own. That's a big sentence. That doesn't make sense here. So, yes, let's go to Canada and study. In the meantime, I can meet a lot of new friends. Let's go shopping. In the meantime, we can check that new store that has opened close to our house. In the meantime, yes? So meantime, you can do, so as you're doing something else, meantime, during that time, you can do something else. So meantime, meanwhile, good. Afterwards. Pink, do you have a sense for afterwards? So afterwards is after something, after that, right? Okay, try it. Someone give me a sense with afterwards.
I walk my dog first. Afterwards, preparing for my lunch.
Very good. So after I walked my dog first, or I walked which one?
Walk.
I walked my dog last night. Afterwards, I did something. So afterwards is an adverb, not an adjective. So you don't say afterwards something. You know, like beside and besides? This is a very important case about beside and besides versus besides. So beside is usually used as an adjective, while besides is usually used as an adverb, right? So when you go to Canada, look, I don't like the place because it's too small. Besides, it smells. So here when I say besides, it means moreover. I'm adding something. Furthermore, we'll have this. It smells. Besides, it smells. Moreover, it smells. But beside, who's the person standing beside John? Standing beside would mean next to, right? I'm sorry. So that one is besides would be an adverb. This one is more or less used as a preposition, right? Let me give you an example here. Beside preposition, at the side of next to, alongside, by, the side of, right? So it's usually used as a preposition and not as an adverb. It also has an adverbial function, but usually we use beside as a preposition. I was standing right beside her, but I can't say besides her. So besides would mean in addition to, like he sat down beside Mary. Who was there besides you? If I say, who was there besides you? It's right here. This is a very good example. Who was there besides you? Who was there beside you? Who was there beside you? If I say who was there beside you, means who was there?
Next to you.
Next to you. But who was there besides you?
And
Means after you, who was there? Who else was there?
Except you.
Yes. Then I would say John, Jim, Mary, Jack. Yeah? So besides you means not including you, excluding. You know we have including and excluding? Including and excluding. This besides you would mean excluding you. Excluding. Excluding you. Who is there excluding you? Excluding is a good word if you can use it. Excluding me, there will be 5 more people. Or excluding me, there will be 5 people. Because even more is somehow redundant. Excluding me, there will be 5 people tonight in Jim's party, or this little get-together that we have, gathering, or in the class. Excluding me, and the teacher, there are 4 more students. There are 4 students, excluding me. Including me, 5. Excluding me, 4. Yes? So we know beside and beside. Somehow that's the case with what was the original word? Afterwards. So when we say afterwards, so she walked the dog. Afterwards, she went home, took a shower, and went straight to bed. So afterwards means after that. We don't say afterward to something. If you have afterward, you can say afterwards something. But afterwards is not like after. I can use it alone. You don't say afterwards something. Afterwards, did you get it? I think it's clear. She walked the dog, and afterwards means after that. So afterwards means after this, after that. After that, she went home. Few more words, kind of important, so them kind of quickly. So you'll have them, and then we'll have a break. So, we need words to describe a process. Well, not just in IELTS. Well, of course, in IELTS, when we have diagrams, we have to describe the process. Something starts first, then followed by, next. So then we have, of course, in IELTS, we have these, when we have processes and diagrams that talk about a process, like remember the fire extinguisher, or there's a fact that give you a picture, and there's a diagram, the different processes of making a brick. They first show you the truck is coming, carrying the brick, the raw material. Then the raw material goes there, then there's a factory. Then the raw material is unloaded from the truck to maybe there's a silo. And then from that, something else happens. Next, something happens. Followed by something else. After that, while something is burning, something else is happening. In the meantime, workers are busy. Meanwhile, you see the boss, the manager, supervising. The supervisor supervising. So you can use all these words. But then we have, so then, next, afterwards, then, after that, followed by. Yeah? So, the first process is followed by something else. Following that, Jane came in, followed by 10 small kids. Followed by. Now, we have followed by and we have preceded by. If something precedes something else, what does that mean? To precede something. It means to come before something else. Yeah? To precede. To precede something. Let me give you an example from here. So precede is verb, and preceding would be noun. A type of cloud that precedes rain. Lunch will be preceded by a short speech from the chairman. What does this mean? Lunch will be preceded by a short speech from the chairman. Would it mean the speech will be before lunch or after lunch?
After.
So we have preceded by lunch. We have two ways of saying it. Lunch will be preceded by or followed by. So if lunch will be preceded by a speech, the speech will come?
First.
The speech will come before or after?
Before.
Preceded means before. So the speech precedes lunch. This is what form of verb is it? Passive. The speech is preceded by lunch. It means that lunch precedes the speech. If lunch precedes the speech is preceded by lunch. Speech is preceded by lunch. So lunch precedes the speech. If lunch is followed by a speech, lunch will be followed by a short speech. The lunch will be followed by a short speech. It means the speech will come before or after?
After.
After. This is a little tough because it's very confusing. Most students would say, hey, followed by means like what? Before or after? It's good to work on. She was followed by 10 kids. She came to the class. Who came first? She entered first, followed by 10 kids. Darmi came in, followed by 15 new students. Wow. Followed by. It's after. So, the speech follows lunch. Or lunch follows speech. So, to follow is like this, right? If the lunch, this is the lunch, follows the speech, it means the dog followed me. He followed me. He followed her. It's easy. He followed her. He followed her. Have you watched movies? Somebody's following me. They're following us. Means what?